Chosen one, there was a time when they thought they had you completely figured out. They believed they understood your limits, your fears, your wounds, and your silence. Jay looked at you and assumed you would stay the same forever. They thought your pain would weaken you. They thought your confusion would delay you. They thought your kindness meant blindness. But what they failed to understand is that God was allowing you to go through isolation, betrayal, disappointment, and spiritual warfare because something powerful was being awakened inside of you. While they were busy watching your struggles, heaven was activating your spirit, and now the same people who underestimated you can feel your energy shifting faster than they ever imagined possible. Chosen one. Jay never expected your awakening to happen this fast, because they were judging you through human eyes, while God was transforming you in the spirit. They saw moments where you doubted yourself. They saw nights where you questioned your path. They saw seasons where you felt exhausted, emotionally drained, and disconnected from the world around you. They thought those moments were signs that you were losing, but they did not realize that God often separates His chosen ones before elevating them. What looked like your breaking point was actually your awakening point. What looked like confusion was spiritual reconstruction. What looked like loneliness was divine preparation. There are people who become nervous the moment a chosen one starts waking up spiritually, because awakened people cannot be manipulated the same way anymore. Before your awakening, you tolerated things you were never meant to tolerate. You ignored red flags because your heart was pure. You gave chances to people who never deserved access to your spirit. You kept trying to save people who were secretly competing with you. But now your discernment has become sharper. Your spirit notices energy before words even leave someone's mouth. You can feel deception before it reveals itself. You can sense when someone's intentions are dark, even if their smile looks friendly. And this sudden change in you is disturbing Jay deeply. They expected you to remain emotionally attached to versions of yourself that God already outgrew. They expected you to stay dependent on their approval. They expected your spirit to stay asleep long enough for them to maintain control over your emotions. But the awakening came suddenly. The awakening came powerfully. One conversation changed you. One betrayal opened your eyes. One painful season pushed you into prayer. One lonely night forced you to hear God more clearly than ever before. Now your energy no longer reacts the same. Now your silence carries authority. Now your presence exposes hidden intentions without you even speaking. Chosen one, there is something terrifying to insecure people about watching someone awaken spiritually. Because once a chosen one truly wakes up, they stop chasing validation. They stop shrinking themselves to make others comfortable. They stop begging for love from people who only offer confusion. They stop ignoring the voice of God inside them. And that transformation threatens anyone who benefited from their old mindset. Jay thought they had more time. They thought they could continue distracting you. They thought your focus would remain on temporary things. They thought your emotions would keep clouding your spiritual vision. But heaven accelerated your awakening because God knew the next season of your life required a stronger version of you. Some awakenings happen slowly. Others happen through fire. Yours happened through pressure, betrayal, isolation, and divine revelation all at once. That is why people around you suddenly feel your distance. You are not cold. You are not hateful. You are becoming spiritually aligned. There is a difference. When a chosen one begins awakening rapidly, certain relationships start feeling uncomfortable automatically. Conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. Places that once felt familiar now drain your spirit. People who once seemed trustworthy suddenly reveal hidden jealousy through small actions and subtle comments. It is not paranoia, it is discernment expanding, and Jay can feel that you are no longer spiritually blind. That is what unsettles them the most. They became comfortable around the old version of you, the version that ignored disrespect, the version that over-explained themselves, the version that tolerated emotional manipulation. But now you observe more than you speak. You detach faster. You protect your peace. You move differently because your soul has experienced a shift that cannot be reversed. Chosen one, your awakening is happening so quickly because God is preparing you for an assignment bigger than you imagined. The enemy attacks chosen ones intensely before major breakthroughs, because darkness can sense when light is becoming stronger. That confusion you survived was not random. That emotional warfare was not random. Those strange betrayals were not random. The spiritual pressure increased because your spirit was getting closer to elevation. And while Jay was focused on controlling your emotions, heaven was increasing your wisdom. While they were trying to discourage you, God was strengthening your discernment. While they were expecting your downfall, your spirit was evolving into something they could no longer understand. Some people become angry when they realize they can no longer influence a chosen one. They notice your reactions changing. They notice you no longer seek constant approval. They notice your energy becoming calmer, wiser, more protected. They notice you withdrawing from chaos instead of participating in it. And because they cannot access you emotionally the way they once did, they become frustrated. But your spirit is finally learning the value of boundaries. Chosen one, not everyone who enters your life deserves permanent access to your energy. One of the biggest signs of awakening is realizing that protecting your peace is not selfish. Some people only feel powerful when they are draining others emotionally. Some people secretly enjoy seeing chosen ones confused because confusion delays purpose. But once your spirit awakens, manipulation becomes easier to recognize, and Jay never expected you to recognize it this quickly. They thought they still had years before you fully understood your worth. They thought you would keep doubting your intuition. They thought your empathy would keep making you vulnerable. But now your spirit checks everything carefully. Now you notice inconsistencies. Now you hear the hidden meaning behind words. Now your soul feels heavy around certain energies instantly. This is why your circle is changing. This is why isolation increased. This is why certain connections suddenly collapsed without warning. God removes distractions quickly when a chosen one is waking up fast. Sometimes people think spiritual awakening feels peaceful in the beginning, but often it feels painful first. Because awakening forces you to see truths you once avoided. It forces you to stop romanticizing toxic behavior. It forces you to acknowledge that some people smiled in your face while secretly hoping you would stay weak. It forces you to accept that not everyone celebrating you actually wants you to rise. And that truth changes everything. Chosen one, there are moments when God intentionally allows betrayal, because betrayal reveals who was never truly aligned with your spirit in the first place. Jay exposed themselves without even realizing it. Their jealousy leaked through their behavior. Their insecurity leaked through their words. Their hidden resentment surfaced through subtle disrespect. But before your awakening, you kept making excuses for people because your heart was too pure to imagine hidden agendas. Now your discernment sees clearly, and clarity changes how you move. You no longer force connections. You no longer chase people who create confusion. You no longer lower your standards just to avoid loneliness. You finally understand that temporary isolation is better than permanent spiritual damage. That realization alone has shifted your entire energy. Chosen one, fast awakenings create uncomfortable separations because your spirit can no longer resonate with environments that dishonor your growth. The old version of you tolerated things your awakened spirit now rejects immediately. That is why certain friendships feel distant now. That is why some conversations exhaust you instantly. That is why your soul craves solitude more than noise. Your spirit is recalibrating. Your energy is being refined. And Jay can feel themselves losing access to the old you. People become nervous when they realize they no longer understand you because misunderstanding creates loss of control. The moment a chosen one stops seeking validation from the outside world, their power multiplies rapidly. Your awakening is teaching you that your value never depended on human approval. God placed greatness inside you long before people recognized it, and the faster you realize that, the stronger you become. Jay expected your awakening to take much longer, because they underestimated your spiritual resilience. They saw your kindness but mistook it for weakness. They saw your patience but mistook it for passivity. They saw your silence but mistook it for lack of awareness. They never imagined that beneath your calm exterior, God was building spiritual strength through every painful experience you survived. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every delay taught you patience. Every disappointment pushed you closer to divine alignment. Every lonely season deepened your connection with God. And now your spirit carries wisdom that cannot be manipulated easily anymore. Chosen one, there is power in finally seeing yourself through God's eyes, instead of through the opinions of wounded people. Once that shift happens, everything changes internally. You stop apologizing for protecting your peace. You stop dimming your light to make insecure people comfortable. You stop feeling guilty for walking away from disrespect. You stop abandoning yourself just to maintain temporary relationships. And people notice that transformation immediately, especially Jay, because the version of you they once understood no longer exists. The awakened version of you moves with discernment instead of emotion. The awakened version of you values peace more than attention. The awakened version of you no longer ignores spiritual warnings just because someone appears familiar. Familiarity does not equal alignment. History does not equal loyalty. And energy never lies for long. That is why your spirit feels different around certain people now. Your soul is recognizing what your heart once ignored. And even though this awakening feels intense, it is necessary because your next level requires stronger spiritual vision. God cannot elevate a chosen one who still trusts every smile blindly. He cannot send you toward purpose while you remain emotionally attached to people assigned to distract you. Some separations are painful because they are divine. Some endings are protection disguised as loss. And the faster your spirit awakens, the faster those hidden truths begin surfacing around you. Now Jay watches you becoming harder to manipulate, harder to confuse, harder to emotionally drain. And they cannot understand how the transformation happened so quickly. But they forgot one thing about chosen ones. When God decides it is time for awakening, nothing can delay it forever. Chosen one, the reason this awakening feels almost supernatural is because your spirit is finally remembering who you were before the world tried to condition you into shrinking yourself. For years, people projected limitations onto you. They told you indirectly to stay small, stay quiet, stay uncertain, stay dependent. Some did it through criticism. Others did it through emotional manipulation, disguised as concern. But beneath all of it was fear. Fear of what would happen if you ever fully recognized your divine power. And now that fear inside them is growing stronger, because they can see the difference in your eyes. There is a certain look awakened chosen ones carry after surviving spiritual warfare. It is the look of someone who has cried deeply, but emerged wiser. The look of someone who stopped expecting the world to save them and started listening directly to God. The look of someone who no longer fears walking alone because they discovered divine presence in isolation. Jay notices this change every time you speak. Every time you remain calm in situations that once triggered you. Every time you choose silence instead of emotional reactions. Every time you walk away from chaos without explaining yourself endlessly, they notice you are becoming spiritually untouchable. And that unsettles them more than words can describe. Chosen one, rapid awakenings happen when heaven knows time is important. Some people spend decades asleep, spiritually, because they resist truth. But chosen ones often awaken through pain, because pain breaks illusions quickly. God allowed certain storms into your life, because comfort would have kept you spiritually asleep. If betrayal never happened, you might still trust the wrong people. If heartbreak never happened, you might still ignore your intuition. If isolation never happened, you might never have learned how powerful your connection with God truly is. What nearly broke you actually awakened you. That is why your enemies miscalculated you completely. They assumed pain would destroy your confidence. Instead, pain sharpened your discernment. They assumed rejection would make you desperate for acceptance. Instead, rejection taught you self-respect. They assumed loneliness would weaken your spirit. Instead, loneliness strengthened your relationship with God. Now your energy carries a different frequency entirely. Chosen one. One of the clearest signs of awakening is when you stop chasing people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Before, you wasted energy trying to explain your heart to those who already decided how they wanted to view you. You kept giving people access to your spirit, even when they repeatedly disrespected your peace. But now your soul understands something powerful. Not every battle deserves your voice. Sometimes silence is protection. Sometimes distance is wisdom. Sometimes walking away is spiritual maturity. And Jay never expected you to learn that lesson this fast. They thought emotional attachment would keep you stuck. They thought memories would keep you emotionally available. They thought your compassion would override your discernment forever. But God started removing emotional fog from your vision. Now you can see manipulation without needing proof, repeated 10 times. Now you can feel hidden resentment behind fake compliments. Now your spirit reacts instantly when energy feels wrong. This awakening changed your internal world completely. Chosen one, there are people who secretly relied on your lack of boundaries. They depended on your tendency to overgive. They benefited from your habit of doubting yourself. They enjoyed having access to your energy while offering little in return. But once a chosen one awakens, they stop leaking energy into places that dishonor them. That is why certain people suddenly accuse you of changing. Because you did. You changed in the exact way God intended. You became more protective of your spirit. You became more intentional with your energy. You became less available for confusion and drama. You became harder to emotionally manipulate. And insecure people always become uncomfortable when they lose access to a version of you that tolerated less than you deserved. Chosen one, your awakening is exposing hidden motives around you faster than ever before. Some people reveal themselves through jealousy. Others reveal themselves through subtle disrespect. Others reveal themselves through discomfort. Whenever you succeed or grow spiritually, pay attention to who becomes distant when you become stronger. Pay attention to who only feels comfortable around you when you are struggling. Pay attention to who acts supportive publicly, but competitive privately. Your discernment is not imagining these things. Your spirit is finally seeing clearly, and clarity is dangerous to deceptive people. Jay thought they understood your future based on your past. They looked at old versions of you and assumed you would remain trapped in old cycles forever. But God accelerated your growth because your destiny required urgency. There are assignments connected to your life that cannot wait for endless hesitation. There are blessings connected to your obedience. There are doors preparing to open that require a more awakened version of you. That is why your spirit feels restless lately. You are outgrowing environments emotionally and spiritually. You are evolving faster than the people around you expected, and not everyone can handle watching someone transform beyond their control. Chosen one, awakening changes the way you view love too. Before, you often confused emotional attachment with genuine connection. You gave loyalty to people simply because history existed. But your spirit now understands that true alignment brings peace, honesty, and spiritual safety. Love should not constantly confuse your spirit. Genuine people do not enjoy draining your emotional energy. Real alignment does not require you to abandon your intuition, and because you finally understand this, your standards have risen. Jay notices that you no longer tolerate mixed signals. You no longer beg for consistency. You no longer chase people who repeatedly wound your spirit. That version of you is disappearing permanently. Chosen one, there is a reason certain people are suddenly trying to re-enter your life now. Your energy is shifting upward, and people can feel it subconsciously. Some are drawn to your light because they genuinely value you. Others are drawn because they sense your elevation and want access before your next chapter begins. Discernment is essential during spiritual awakenings because not every returning person deserves re-entry. Some people return because they changed. Others return because they realize you changed. There is a difference, and your awakened spirit must learn how to recognize it. Jay underestimated how quickly you would stop entertaining emotional confusion. They assumed your heart would always keep the door open. But awakening teaches chosen ones that peace is more valuable than familiarity. Just because someone once mattered deeply does not mean they deserve permanent access to your future. Growth sometimes requires separation from people who cannot evolve with you. That truth hurts, but it also frees you. Chosen one, your spirit is no longer attracted to surface-level energy. You crave depth now. You crave honesty. You crave alignment. Small talk exhausts you because your soul desires meaning. Fake interactions drain you because your energy recognizes authenticity instantly now. This is one reason awakening often feels lonely initially. Your spirit can no longer connect comfortably with energies that lack sincerity. But do not mistake temporary loneliness for abandonment. God isolates chosen ones strategically before elevation. Isolation teaches you how to hear divine guidance without constant outside noise. Isolation reveals who truly values your spirit. Isolation strengthens emotional independence. Isolation breaks unhealthy attachments. And most importantly, isolation awakens spiritual authority. Jay never expected you to become this spiritually strong this quickly, because they only understood the wounded version of you. They built assumptions based on your old emotional patterns. They expected your trauma to keep repeating itself forever. But God interrupted the cycle. God refused to allow your pain to become your permanent identity. Now you are becoming someone they cannot predict anymore. That loss of predictability frustrates people who once felt emotionally powerful around you. Chosen one, there is a spiritual glow that appears around people who finally stop betraying themselves. It is not just physical, It is energetic. When you begin honoring your intuition, protecting your peace, and walking in alignment with God, your presence changes naturally. People feel it without understanding why. Some become inspired by it. Others become intimidated by it. Jay became intimidated by it because your awakening exposed the fact that they underestimated you completely. They thought your silence meant weakness. They thought your patience meant ignorance. They thought your kindness meant permanent access. But now they see wisdom replacing innocence. Now they see discernment replacing emotional dependency. Now they see confidence replacing self-doubt, and the transformation happened faster than they prepared for. Chosen one, the spiritual warfare intensified because your breakthrough was approaching. Darkness attacks hardest when divine elevation is near. The confusion, exhaustion, anxiety, and emotional heaviness were not random experiences. Your spirit was shedding old versions of itself while preparing for higher alignment. Awakening often feels uncomfortable because growth requires death of the old self. The old you had to die emotionally. The people-pleasing version had to die. The fearful version had to die. The insecure version had to die. The overly accessible version had to die. And now a stronger version is emerging. A version that trusts God more deeply. A version that values peace more than approval. A version that no longer ignores spiritual warnings. A version that understands their worth without needing constant reassurance. Chosen one, some people secretly hoped your wounds would keep you distracted forever. Wounded people are easier to manipulate. Confused people are easier to control. Emotionally exhausted people are easier to deceive. But healing changes everything. Awakening changes everything. Once a chosen one begins healing spiritually, manipulation stops working the same way. That is why certain people become desperate for your attention suddenly. Your energy shifted beyond their reach, and now they feel the distance. Jay thought they had more influence over your emotions than they actually did. But God was slowly breaking those emotional chains without you realizing it fully. Every painful lesson was teaching your soul independence. Every disappointment was redirecting your spirit inward toward divine guidance instead of external validation. Now you pause before reacting. Now you listen to your intuition first. Now you observe actions instead of believing words automatically. Now your spirit prioritizes peace over attachment. That is awakening. Chosen one, your future requires a level of spiritual maturity that your past environment could never sustain. You cannot enter your next season carrying old emotional habits. You cannot rise while remaining emotionally tied to energies designed to drain you. God is refining your spirit, because where you are going demands greater discernment, stronger boundaries, and deeper trust in divine guidance. This is why your tolerance for chaos disappeared so suddenly. This is why your spirit feels exhausted around negativity now. This is why your soul craves solitude, prayer, and clarity more than ever before. You are aligning with your higher calling, and alignment always creates separation before elevation. Jay never expected the transformation to happen this quickly, because they mistook your temporary struggles for permanent weakness. But chosen ones are different. Pressure does not destroy them forever. Pressure awakens them. The very experiences meant to break your spirit became the catalyst for your spiritual evolution. Now you walk differently. Now you think differently. Now you feel differently. And even though the journey still has challenges ahead, your spirit is no longer asleep enough to settle for what dishonours your soul. That is what truly changed everything. Because once a chosen one fully begins awakening, there is no returning to the old version of themselves ever again. Chosen one, at this stage of your awakening, something very important is happening beneath. what you can immediately see. Your spirit is no longer reacting to life the way it used to. There is a pause now between what happens and how you respond. That pause is wisdom forming. That pause is emotional control being restored. That pause is God rewiring your internal system so you no longer get pulled into cycles that were never meant for you. Jay can feel this shift too, even if they cannot explain it. Because people who were once able to trigger your emotions now find silence where reactions used to be. They find distance where attachment used to be. They find clarity where confusion used to exist. And that absence of emotional access makes them uncomfortable, because they were used to a version of you that overexplained, overgave, and overfelt everything. But that version is gone, not because you became cold, but because you became aware. Chosen one, what you are experiencing now is spiritual stabilization. After intense awakening, God does not just reveal truth, He stabilizes you in it. This means your spirit is learning how to stay grounded, even when old energies try to pull you back. Even when familiar faces resurface. Even when emotional triggers appear unexpectedly. You are no longer spiritually unstable like before. You are being anchored, and anchored souls cannot be easily shaken anymore. This is why Jay's presence, actions, or silence no longer control your internal world the way they